And we're off. John, by the way, that's my new calling for when I start the podcast. Apparently, some people like it, so that's when I give the people what they want. John Maakaron, the publisher of Detroit Lions on SI.com, who started quite the storm on Tuesday morning. Yes, this way. Yes, that's the guy who published the one-on-one with linebacker Grant Stuard, where he took maybe a little shot at the Miami Dolphins for being, shall we say it, soft. And John and I are going to preview the joint practices coming up Wednesday and Thursday on the latest episode of the All Dolphins podcast, episode 538 for Tuesday, August 12th. If I'm a little loopy at one point or another, please forgive me. I just drove from Chicago to Detroit today. And then after we're done with this, John and I are going to go have dinner because that's how we roll. John, first of all, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, man. I'm glad you made it into town. It's going to be a fun time. The Dolphins are in town, and I do think that the players on both sides, they get excited when they get to match up against somebody that's not on their own team. And for Grant Stuard, he definitely let off, he took a shot, and I think it's great because competition, I think, will help both teams in regards to the purpose of the practice is to kind of get an evaluation before an important preseason game.
Okay. Did you just say important preseason game? Sorry. No, there's nothing important, but sorry. Big question for you, though. I want to paint the picture for me of when he's saying it, kind of the look. Is he aware that he's taken a shot that this could go viral, or is he just making a generic statement of like the Lion? Nobody is like the Lions. How would you interpret his comment?
Yeah, no, look, we all know the preseason doesn't mean anything in terms of the win-loss column, but there's jobs to be had. Correct. And when there's jobs to be had, there's competition. And what's interesting, Alan, which is really crazy, is that now when players come to Detroit, they definitely are aware of the market difference in how the Lions practice maybe versus how other teams practice. Dan Campbell runs a tight ship, and it's physical. When I first started covering...
Don't say that, John, don't say that. You're going to scare... Oh, and we're going to get into it, but you're going to scare Dolphin fans right now.
Yeah. When I first started covering the Lions, Aaron Glenn had his players talking violence, hitting, wanting to be physical and set the tone. So when Grant Stuard said what he said, the natural question was simply, it was at the tail end of a one-on-one, the last question. It's, hey, what do you think about, a new team coming in? I thought he'd give the standard answer. And he's like, man, I don't know based on how we practice. I don't know if the Dolphins are ready for what's about to come. And he definitely was going off of past experiences, kind of indicating that the Lions practice different markedly than most teams. They're very physical, lots of physicality, lots of hitting, lots of opportunities. And it's just one of those deals where the competition level is ramped up to a degree that Grant Stuard felt was different and felt like maybe Miami won't be able to handle. So you'll tell me if they've shed the soft label, because right now, when you look at the Lions defense in this early portion of training camp, they've taken it to the Lions offense, and they've been quite physical. They've been trying to punch the ball out and really trying to set the tone under new defensive coordinator, Kelvin Shepard. So when you have a former player that's a defensive coordinator and he wants to set the tone, I think Miami better get ready, because if they don't, the Lions have no problem trying to embarrass another team.
Kelvin Shepard, by the way, former Dolphins linebacker, for those not aware. Okay, then this is going to bring us back to the joint practice with the Bears, where Mike McDaniel told us beforehand the understanding he had with Ben Johnson, they were going to thud, there would be no live tackling. And the Bears players on defense apparently didn't get the memo, because one of them ran through Jalen Waddle. There was a hit on Eric Ezukama. Tua Tagovailoa was hit twice. And then Noah Sewell, younger brother of Penei, basically clubbed Ezukama on top of the helmet after a catch down the field. And then there was a altercation on the Dolphin sideline between two Dolphin players, because Jordan Brooks was mad at his teammate Tyrell Dodson because he wanted Tyrell Dodson to run through a Bears player after a third down catch instead of just tagging him, standing him up, which is what Dodson did. And Dodson basically said in the locker room after the preseason opener against the Bears, I was going by the rules of what the practice was supposed to be. Now, based on what you're telling me and what happened in Chicago, me thinks the Dolphin defensive players are going to be coming out like this, and maybe that's good. Are the Lions ready for that?
I think it's great. I think, when you look at it for two teams, you really want to establish, a line of credibility when you're going up against somebody. And I think at the NFL level, Alan, that it's one of those deals where everybody's competitive. You don't want to get shown up. And I thought the same thing going out last year. The Lions and the Giants, Brian Daboll and Dan Campbell were close. They used to work together. And I thought that the practices would be cordial, but competitive. Within day one, it was hot. It was sweltering, which may be the case out there here in Allen Park. You'll get a chance. Make sure you bring your bucket hat because it's been sweltering with humidity here in Detroit. So it could raise temperatures, raise tempers. And out there in New York, the Giants and Lions first day, they had to stop practice so much that the second day it was also abbreviated because of all the hitting and the extracurriculars. I wonder what level of physicality both teams are going to bring because there's going to be a game on Saturday. But in the end, I do think the competitiveness between both, if you're a competitor, you're not going to want Grant Stuard out there chirping. And if they heard the comments, hey, we're not ready, I'm pretty sure the Dolphins defense is going to be like, we're ready for everything. And in the NFL, I do like the high ego-driven nature of a lot of these teams, and I do think that both teams. Look, you have guys on the Lions that played at Alabama under Nick Saban, Tyrion Arnold, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and they worked under Aaron Glenn before he got the Jets job, and his mission was always violence, hit, be aggressive. And now this camp, Dan Campbell has been emphasizing turnovers, like he wants his guys punching at the ball, being aggressive, trying to knock that football out more than just interceptions. So the message is, hey, let's be clear and let's get after it. And so I don't think Kelvin Shepherd is going to have it where the Lions defense is going to take a step back. These guys are high motor guys, very competitive against their own team. Now, when there's a new team coming in, I expect some serious physicality going on, maybe even bordering on quite aggressive, maybe some extracurriculars that could happen. I'm excited to hopefully see it.
Okay. Yeah, I would think the Dolphin players have seen it by now because I posted the comment giving proper attribution because that's the way it's supposed to be done to you, my friend, because you're the one who got the quote one-on-one. And it's right now that tweet's got 102,000 views. So it's made the rounds. Before I move on to how the Dolphins might respond and where the Dolphins stand and all of this and the physicality type of thing, I know you had asking me about this earlier, about this reputation of the Dolphins being soft and what can be done about it. Is Grant Stuard even going to make the roster?
Oh, yeah. I think that first and foremost, the special teams coach took a liking to the story that there was a profile done on Grant Stuard, just the road that he took to get to the NFL. He's rugged. And I'd asked him, I said, because this was coming on the heels of our safety, Maurice Norris, having a significant on-field situation. I said, how do you turn that off? I mean, your job is to go out there, make tackles, and on special teams is to go out there and be physical all the time. And he said, man, I don't turn it off. I'm a football player, and my job is to think all the time. It's like when I retire, maybe I'll go into that business sector, do podcasts like this. But he's like, I'm just all about it. Football, football, football. And he's out there making tackles, making plays. I do think he's going to have a spot on the roster, and I do think probably the ceiling for him is a reserve linebacker outside of the top three. But I do think that he's definitely made himself a welcome addition to the team with his physicality, and they've been trying to use him as a returner.
Okay, let me chime. Okay, let me chime in here because you just brought a point that I was like, whoa, okay. You do not expect the level of physicality the Lions want to exhibit to change in the least in the aftermath of the Maurice Norris injury?
Yeah, look, man, it's tough. A lot of the players said, hey, it's something, but they've been through it before. One of their defensive backs, Savion Smith, a couple years ago was carted off against the Patriots. And so he had to get neck surgery. And so, look, it's understood that it's a violent physical game. It's a tough situation to kind of get in and out of mental, that headspace when you see one of your teammates falling, but he's okay. And what Dan Skipper said, the veteran offensive lineman, the reserve tackle, what he said was, listen, he gets the natural concerns from his family, like, hey, you play a violent sport. Dan Campbell runs a very physical practice that's aggressive and rugged. But he told reporters on Monday, He said, look, there's no better place if you're going to suffer an injury than an NFL field. Top quality. He said it's better than a level 1 trauma unit. He said, I would put the NFL medical system up against anybody. He's like, they take care of us. They're watching everything. The response that he got to see from what happened with Maurice Norris was nothing short of spectacular. It was quick response right to the hospital, was well taken care of. And now Maurice Norris is in concussion protocol and is being monitored before he's ever going to be allowed back on the field. So look, it's one of those tough deals where everyone knows on any given play something like that could happen. But that's what makes all these guys warriors, is that you got to go after. You got to go into the line of fire ready to tackle, ready to go. And in Dan Campbell defense and a Dan Campbell team, you have to be someone that's going to play to the whistle and be aggressive and get after it. Because if you don't, there will be 2-3 other guys brought in that will get after it. The main saying here in Detroit that Dan Campbell, he might even wear the shirt against the Dolphins, is grit, G-R-I-T. It's all over the city. It represents the people. Grit, get after it, and it's tackle football. And look, even though things happen, it's accepted part of the game by the Lions and the organization.
Okay, so you don't see a universe where Dan – no, hold on. Let me pose my question. You don't see a universe where Dan Campbell will be completely okay with Mike McDaniel telling him, how about we just start no life tackling?
You can say that, but you have to let that message register to a bunch of very committed and these guys are trying to make a job. And look, it's one of those deals where these players want to showcase that, hey, we're tough, that we're physical, and it's like one of those simple age-old adages, better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And if these guys are going to go at it, they're going to get after it. And it's tough for physical. It's tough in a physical sport to play in a manner that's less than 100%. And I do think that both sides are excited to take on the opportunity to tackle and get after it. And of course, you don't want no injuries, but you want tough physical competition. Hopefully there's competition between, offensive line, defensive line, and we get to see the physicality of the sport. And look, there's going to be hopefully red zone periods. There's going to be times where some high ego players are going to go up against each other. And Alan, I got to let your audience know, the Lions talk trash, and they talk a lot of it. And I'm talking about individual reps, one-on-one reps, simple reps, walk-through reps. These Lions players talk, and they talk a lot. And it's the Alabama style, man. Brian Branch, if he gets after it, he's a player that took some unfortunate, hefty amount of fines last year for the physical style of play. Even to his own detriment, was racking up those fines, I think north of $60,000. And listen,
he's a baller. I'm a big fan of his.
Yes, he's a great player. And so I just have a difficult time seeing him dial it back when especially he sees one of those talented wideouts out there.
Here's the thing, though. It may not be a Bama thing because the Dolphins have some high-profile Bama players, and Tua is not a trash talker. Jalen Waddle is not a trash talker. Jalen Ramsey was a world-class trash talker, but now he's in Pittsburgh. And I'm looking at the team on defense. I don't know that they have some. Minka's not a chirper. If you look at their high-end players, Zach Sealer's not a chirper. And on offense, Tyreek will talk, but we don't even know if he's going to work. And this is where I'm going to mention. By the way, quick side note. You mentioned your one player wound up in the hospital. Dolphins have had 2 players this summer wound up in the hospital. Tackle Barrow Matos in a practice, and then Alexander Madison, the running back, in the preseason opener. He's been placed on IR, and for record-keeping purposes, the Dolphins waived Monterey Baldwin, the rookie free agent, on Monday. And they signed 2 running backs, Mike Boone and Aaron Shamklin, on a day when they also worked out former Detroit Lions running back Jamal Williams and also Royce Freeman, formerly of Oregon, and he played with the Broncos. I don't know who else he played with. Now, with the Dolphins, I don't see any issue with them being physical on defense, and that's never been, whenever we talk about the Dolphins, quote-unquote, being soft, it's not about the defense, because the defense can thump, and Jordan Brooks is a thumper at linebacker. The defensive line's got some big dudes now, and in the back end, Mike Hilton's a very good tackler, but he's kind of smallish. I don't know if you'd call him a thumper. I don't know that they have a lot of thumpers in the back end, but it's not a team that shies away from physicality on defense. The thing is, on offense, and I said this from the beginning, and I also questioned exactly how far the Dolphins could go because of that style. It's a finesse offense. It's not, okay, it's 3rd and 1. We're coming straight at you. Go ahead and stop us. That's not what it is. Generally speaking, the offense is based on misdirection, the speed of Hill and Waddle, Tua's quick passing, and part of the reason, and this is part of what leads to the team's short yardage situation. So if the Lions decide to get very physical on defense, the Dolphins did add Jonas Savaiinaia, who's a big boy at guard, to ideally bring some physicality. Aaron Brewer's he's maybe the smallest center in the NFL. So Patrick Paul's a mountain at left tackle. And apparently, speaking, by the way, yeah, he's apparently a world-class trash talker. So that could be one guy right there to check out, particularly in one-on-ones. And will do that. I would love for him. I don't know if Aiden Hutchinson is doing one-on-ones. Oh God, I hope they go against each other. Would love to see Patrick Paul with that test. But that's not their identity. And if the Lions decide to get very physical, I don't know exactly what the Dolphin offense can do to match it other than have their defense do some light tackling. And, okay, having said that, when I mentioned Hill and Waddle, or the key guys on this offense, I asked Mike McDaniel on Tuesday morning in a Zoom media session whether they'll be participating, and I got the ever-popular day-to-day. And I also got the double negative of I'm not expecting them to practice. And I'm like, okay, that's basically don't know. So we'll find out Wednesday. Tyreek's dealing with an oblique injury. Jalen Waddle has something minor. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's as a result of something that happened in the joint practice on Friday, and he took a shot when he caught a screen pass. So I don't know exactly where that leaves us as far. And then Jalen Phillips also on defense is day-to-day. He also got injured in a joint practice. I was watching the defense. I didn't see what happened. So I don't know.
So when we look at it, though, too, physicality can come in a lot of different ways, too. You talk about, maybe there's going to be maybe a clear agreement between, how the quarterbacks are handled and all those kind of things, the natural stuff that you would expect. I'm talking about, the Lions trying to punch the ball out, extracurricular type stuff, when they go to the ground, all that kind of natural type stuff. And in regards to the Lions, what's fascinating with their defense is, they have veteran leadership in Alex Anzalone, and they also have now the next potential Mike linebacker who's going to be the leader in Jack Campbell. These are all guys that have, the grit mentality. They're all kind of been selected by the Lions to fit this profile of tough, gritty guys that love football, that love the competition. And even if, Achan or one of the Dolphins make a play, the thing about the Lions that they respect is, okay, if you get beat on this one rep, how are you going to handle it the next time? And that's why we've seen a lot of the pit battles where, per se, Penei Sewell might lose a rep to Aiden Hutchinson. He comes back the next one and is competing twice as hard not to lose multiple reps. So that's where this competitive nature every single day. And so from Grant Stuart's perspective, I just think that he looked at his team and said, I don't know, like from how you're describing it, I don't know if the Dolphins are ready for the ferocious, nonstop action that the Lions are going to bring from whistle to whistle. So get ready. I think it's going to happen. I think that the Dolphins are going to be forced to match the level of intensity on every aspect. And I do think, too, there's a lot of people that are wanting to see some of these high-profile matchups potentially with hopefully a Terry Arnold and a DJ Reed against the star wideouts of the Dolphins. And I do think that there's opportunities in these red zone drills to see, hey, if a pass from Tua is in the neighborhood, who's going to be willing to fight for the ball first? Is it going to be DJ Reed? Is it going to be Tyreek? Let's see. And I think that's where people are looking at it like, hey, 50-50 balls, you better bring it, or DJ Reed's going to come down with the football.
Or Jalen Waddle's going to run right by him. Hate to bring up a bad memory for DJ Reed. Yeah. If you're watching DJ, nothing personal, but I remember Tyreek Hill being out in the game against the Jets in 2023, and Jalen Waddle beat him at the line of scrimmage and went 60 yards for a touchdown. And this was captured on Hard Knocks, where Mike McDaniel was mic'd up, and they go, okay, one play drive coming up here. It's 1st and 10 from the 40, and boom, over the top touchdown.
And I think DJ Reed might also remember that. Well, so that's always a great, and that might even be shown to him by Dan Campbell right before the practice. So I hope that that's talked about. That's great.
quick semi-related Lion stuff here. And I ask you this because he is now in the AFC East. Should the Dolphins be concerned about the New York Jets becoming a good team sooner rather than later, based on what you saw from Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator and his potential as a head coach?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The Lions tree now has started to spread out. Ben Johnson's now with the Bears, and Aaron Glenn gets an opportunity. I just think it's a natural fit. The stories are symbiotic with Detroit. Aaron Glenn, a former Jet, he understands the culture. He understands the rabid fan base. He's a former player, and he's got a relationship now with the GM. And you realize, okay, he's going to build it from the ground up. I would be very concerned if you're a Dolphins fan, because he's going to bring the same rugged mentality that Dan Campbell did. You're already hearing some of the similar talk, grit, day by day. What also, too, I'm impressed with is he took the an offensive mind that was working under Ben Johnson and Tanner Engstrand. I'm very high on him. I believe the offense will start to develop with the run game first. You saw if you watched, I did watch the Jets game against the Packers, and they were able to establish the line of scrimmage pretty clearly with starters. And the run game was there. It was very solid. I expect the defense that has talent all over to be very aggressive and opportunistic. So I don't think it'll take too long. Maybe not the first year, but within a couple of years, I expect probably a similar trajectory. 5-6 wins the first year, get your system in place, and then a steady jump in year 2. But look out, if Aaron Glenn follows a similar trajectory as Dan Campbell, you're looking at within 2 or 3 years, the Jets being a perennial division winner, and they're going to be tough, and they're going to understand that games against the Dolphins, Dan Campbell hyper-focused on division games. He definitely understood that one win in the division would represent 2 wins. So last year, I believe the Lions had the opportunity to go 6-0 in the division. If that is emphasized by Aaron Glenn to that degree, Dolphins better step it up, because, yeah, it'll be a biannual beatdown every year if the Dolphins don't match the physicality of what Aaron Glenn's going to bring.
Again, I know, but no, what I'm saying is I don't think, as the Dolphins are currently constructed, they're not beating teams by being more physical than them.
Right.
And this is what they did in 23, and it was good enough to where at one point they were 11-4.
Well, I'll say this. The line started in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. Correct. The Jets in the trenches, so look out.
Correct. And this is where I wrote this on MiamiDolphinsOnTheSide.com at one point. I think it was late last year, where the Dolphins and Lions kind of were in a similar spot in terms of their rebuilding. What they were doing is the Lions went like this and the Dolphins went kind of sideways. And to me, one of the starting points was the 2021 draft, when the Dolphins had the 6th overall pick after going 3 to 12 to 6. And they took Jalen Waddle, who's a good player, who's a very good player. But then the Lions took Penei Sewell, who's a foundational player. And I think this is where, and this is kind of established on the road to establishing the Dolphins as a finesse speed team and the Lions as a bite your kneecap type of team. Am I right?
Absolutely. You build the football is predicated on having great defensive line, offensive line, and it all starts from there. And you look at it from the perspective of the Lions. When they got Penei Sewell, they were able to really establish the foundation of, hey, we want to be a running team. We want to win the line of scrimmage, establish that, hey, Dan Campbell's old school. He's got a lot of the Bill Belichick style in him of do your job, make sure you trust the guy next to you, get after it. Bill Parcells, Sean Payton, that model. Where, yeah, he's player-friendly and very nice in front of the camera, but he's an old-school, rugged football coach that definitely understands that if you win the line of scrimmage and you're able to establish the run and stop the run, that's why Tyleik Williams was the first-round pick this year. Stopping the run, very key, important to the Lions' defense in their whole operation. And so when you look at the philosophy, they've identified it and they've stuck with it, and it's produced wins even when there's been a high level of volatility with their roster with all the injuries that they faced. That's why it's interesting, because when we look at the talk of what Grant Stuard has been talking about, the Lions are dealing with injuries on a daily basis. Players leave practice early. Even in the face of fans being nervous, the Lions have not decreased the level of intensity. And even so, to the point where Zadarius Smith comes in and he's been all across the league. And to a man, everybody you talk to, because we don't get a chance for your audience to know, we don't get a chance to see whole practices. We see 10 minutes, we count who's there, and we leave. So I ask in the locker room, what's it like to go through a Dan Campbell practice? And every player lights up and goes, and one of our linemen said it too. He goes, we practice so hard that it's not even close in the game. We practice so hard. Giovanni Manu said, I'm getting, destroyed by Aiden Hutchinson. I'm getting destroyed by Marcus Davenport. But when I go to the game, it feels like nothing compared to what we practice, and we're able to get after it. And so that's where, to a man, and Darius Smith's been everywhere. He's like, man, this is different. But football players like it because they realize when you practice that hard in the week, when the game comes, it's actually kind of easy. It's just go out there, do your job, be physical. And the Lions, which is great, they release just like every other team, they release a draft video. And their new right guard, Tate Ratledge, he was asked, okay, what stands out about you? He's like, I know that when it's in the fourth quarter, I'm going to be more dominant than my opponent. I just know it. And that's the definition of grit. He's like, when it's the fourth quarter and it's time for me to maul somebody, I know I'm going to outlast the guy that's across from me. That's the mentality. And that's every player the Lions are drafting has some sort of that mentality. So when Grant Stuard says maybe the Dolphins aren't ready, it probably means that there are aspects of the mentality that the Lions have installed that now year 5 with Dan Campbell is to the point where everybody understands it. And it's just really difficult for other teams not doing it to match it on a given day, especially on a hot day in Detroit and in Motown. Let's go. Let's see how the Dolphins handle some adversity.
Okay. You mentioned Tate Ratledge. I'm glad you did, because I want to point out that after the Dolphins traded some picks to move up to select Jonas Savaiinaia with the 37th overall pick or 38th overall pick, the next guard selected in the draft was Tate Ratledge. And I made a point to say, and I got some pushback on it, and guess what? I'm still going to make the same point, that I'm going to keeping an eye on Ratledge to see what kind of NFL player he was, because if his NFL career is comparable or better than that of Savaiinaia, then the Dolphins, in essence,
whiffed
picks that they could have used. So, before I ask you one last question, before I let you go, I should note that Cam Smith will be back at practice this week, as will rookie safety Dante Trader Jr., the 5th round pick from Maryland. So my last question to you is, the Lions will be playing their 3rd of 4 preseason games, because they were in the Hall of Fame games for the Dolphins. It's preseason game number 2. That being the case, would you expect, and if so, how much, the starters to play for the Lions on Saturday?
Yep. And I have one question for you.
Okay.
Because it's something that I think everybody is clamoring for, but will not get. But I'm very curious your opinion, because you have a firsthand knowledge of this wide receiver. But I don't think the Lions are going to play starters. They are very concerned here in Detroit about the injuries. And I think that this year, the Lions starters, Brad Holmes told the local radio station in his interview, he said, he was asked, what's the biggest challenge you're facing? He's like, listen, we're drafting players, but it's going to be tougher to make this team. There's so many good players, especially along the starting offense and defense. So you look at it, it's very key, vital for the success. Like any team, the depth is always a concern at different spots, but the Lions have key depth in a lot of areas. The one areas you'd be concerned about for Lions fans is probably the interior of the offensive line and cornerbacks. But the starting 11 on offense and defense.
Sounds familiar. Sorry.
Yeah, you can match with anybody across the league. So you don't want to risk that. I would not expect that, especially if what I'm expecting to happen over these next 2 days, I think the starters are going to get a lot of situational work. You're going to see a lot of high-profile matchups, and then you get the game opportunity to let some of the guys battle for jobs. That's what it is. This game is important for Hendon Hooker, for the likes of those battling for jobs.
Grant Stuard? No.
Yeah, right. For those that are trying to get opportunities to get on the field, I think it's more important, and that's how the Lions have operated. Some will argue maybe they do need it because they did start slow offensively last year, but I would be quite surprised because I expect the next 2 days to be very, very rowdy. So, but everybody here wants to know.
Go ahead.
They want me to ask Dan Campbell directly. You guys have a speedster in Tyreek Hill.
Oh, yeah.
We have a speedster in Jamison Williams. Now, different body types, but everybody wants to know. You've seen top-end speed. I've seen Jamo's top-end speed where he basically can run at 3/4 speed and he can get sub 4.3. In a race, one-on-one, 40-yard dash. Could Tyreek Hill topple one of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL? Does Tyreek still have that legendary speed? Because we're all voting here in Detroit that let's go. Let's see it. Line them up, end practice. Let's go. 40-yard dash. Let's see who's got the fastest speed. Because I think in Detroit, we truly believe we got the fastest receiver in the league. It's J-Mo. It's not Tyreek.
Oh man, yeah. And here's the thing: if J-Mo starts yapping at Tyreek will be like, "Let's do it right now. Bring it on."
That's what we want to see.
Yeah,
I might just tell someone. I might like, "Hey, J-Mo, Tyreek said he could beat you."
And I think he could. I mean, Tyreek is. Oh, here we go. John's like, no. I am curious to see J-Mo up close. I've seen Tyreek up close, and it's stupid speed. I mean, it's like, my Lord, is this guy fast? But if I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen it manifest itself quite as much this training camp. And then last year he was dealing with the wrist issue, but this first training camp he joined the Dolphins, it was like something I had never seen before in my life. It was like, my Lord, is this guy fast? So no, it would be interesting. But again, add that to the long list of challengers for Tyreek. He's already supposed to race Noah Lyles. Whenever that's going to happen, probably never. The YouTube guy, I don't even know his name.
I show speed.
I show something like that. Yeah. So he's got a long list of people who want to challenge him. But yeah, it would be interesting. How about we'll just say they're both really, really fast.
And listen, you're going to enjoy it because I think you'll get a firsthand look day one, and you'll get a chance to see and give a nuanced take afterwards as well. But it's going to be a fun time, man. I'm excited. I do think that Lions and Dolphins connection is unique, being that Dan was there. And I think that Dan's said specifically he likes the Ravens' influence on the Dolphins' defense, so that scheme fits in regards to helping our offense grow. So it's going to be a fun matchup, and let's go. It's competitive, and I'm very thankful you're in town, and we're going to have a chance to collaborate and compare notes as to why the Lions are better than the Dolphins.
Wow.
Clearly.
Direct all complaints to the John Maakaron Detroit Sportscast on X. It's all in good fun. John, appreciate the time. Catch his fine work on DetroitLionsOnSI.com. The Detroit Sportscast. Did I say that right?
Detroit Sports Podcast at Detroit Podcast on X.
There you go. Okay, check my fine work at MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com and that of my staff. The All Dolphins Podcast, you know where to catch it. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Programming note, yes, there will be post-practice recaps and the Dolphins Collective on Friday night. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on Wednesday.